Hello everyone, Brian Kibler here with your comprehensive and crucial and singularly most important review of Magic 2019, which is of course the Dragon Review. Magic 2019 went back to the plane of Tarkir, and we get to see the most important creature type in the entire game represented in a style that befits their majesty, with the presence of not only elder dragons, but also a lot of dragon-related cards. And I want to talk about them today and go through what I think the most important dragons and most impactful dragons in the set will be. Before we get into that, I do have one request of all of you. You may have heard that I will be participating in the Silver Showcase at the Magic Team Pro Tour in Minneapolis coming up, and I will also be competing in the team event. I made an announcement recently that both myself and my entire team will be donating all of the prize money that we earn in that Pro Tour to charity. Additionally, I am creating a fundraiser that will be going toward the ACLU, who are doing very important work in the United States right now on a lot of issues relating to individual rights. And I will be matching all funds raised in that fundraiser up to 100% of my winnings from the Silver Showcase event. I am guaranteed at least $12,500 from that event just for showing up and participating. But if you guys help contribute and raise that much money, all of that money will be going to charity. So you'll find the link to that in the description. So if you do feel like you would like to help support that, we would very much appreciate the help and support. So thank you very much in advance. But let's get into the meat of the video, which is the Dragon Review. We're going to start with the Dragon Synergy cards, the cards that help support the mighty dragons themselves, which, there are quite a few of in M19. First up, we have Draconic Disciple, a 3 casting cost green-red 2/2 that has tap, add 1 mana of any color, and 7 sacrifice and tap to create a 5/5 red dragon creature with flying. This is, not really well statted enough to find its way into a constructed dragon deck, at least in the standard competitive environment, and will likely be relegated to limited. As a limited card, it's not bad because it can be used to ramp you into bigger creatures, as well as give you sort of a late game boost of being able to turn into a 5/5 dragon. 5/5 dragon with flying. Yes, it costs you 7 mana, but you've invested 3 of that earlier and potentially gotten mana off of it. So I think this is a pretty decent limited card, but not something I'm looking to play in any kind of constructed deck. Next up, we have Dragon Egg. The question, which came first, the dragon or the egg? Well, apparently there is an egg at least that it could have come from, but I like to believe that sort of the great dragons of old had an origin that is more mysterious than simply coming from a dragon egg that died. This is a fine limited card as well. A 0/2 for 3 that when it dies you get effectively a dragon whelp. So I do like the story of this. This is kind of a callback to the original dragon whelp from Alpha, Beta, Unlimited that had exactly the stats that this has when it dies. So kind of a cool storyline card of how dragons come to be. Not so powerful a card itself. Next up we have one of the cards that I'm pretty excited about actually, which is Dragon's Hoard, which is a 3-cost artifact that can tap to add any mana of any color to your pool, as well as gets a gold counter whenever you play a dragon, and you can tap to remove a gold counter from this to draw a card. So first of all, a 3-cost mana artifact isn't inherently very powerful. We've seen Manalith many times, not really itself super strong. But one of the problems with that is that it's such a weak draw in the sort of mid to late game when you no longer need the ramp. Even just ramping, for 1 mana for 3 is not horrible in a lot of decks that are looking to go up to, say, 5 mana, 6 mana. And if you can actually use your mana rock, in this case the Dragon's Hoard, to generate resources later in the game, that can be extremely strong. If you play like 1 dragon when you have this in play, that's effectively making this card free in terms of the actual card count. And if you play more than that, this is netting you cards. So if you're playing a dragon-focused deck, you're very likely going to have good use for both the mana fixing, because there's a lot of multicolored dragons, the ramp, because dragons are big, and then, of course, the gold. What dragon isn't like a horde? And you can start regaining resources and really pulling ahead if your opponent is able to attrition down some of your dragons. This can help you gain back that resource advantage. So I haven't actually had a chance to play with this card yet, but theoretically this card seems pretty powerful to me in a deck that has a strong enough density of dragons to really end up taking advantage of the gold counters and card draw. Next up we have Kargan Dragon Rider, just a 2-cost 2/2. As long as you control a dragon, it has flying. Yeah, this is kind of a more of an homage type card than I think any kind of powerful card. This is more just like, okay, these are the people of Tarkir who serve the dragons and they rides the dragons, etc., etc. 2-cost 2/2. There's a lot of really powerful red creatures right now that we see in a lot of the mono red decks. There's Earthshaker Kenya, etc., etc. Scar something mage, Scar Soul Mage. I don't know the names of the cards that well. I think that one actually can cost 1, but regardless. I think that this is not really likely to see all that much play. You're probably going to be wanting to play removal or ramp creatures in your early turns when you're playing a deck that does have enough dragons to take advantage of this. Maybe this ends up fitting into a deck with the Bladewing, because just you're playing that as sort of a mid-game threat, and you want a little bit of evasive help if you do play against decks that are trying to clog up the ground. But if people try to clog up the ground, you're probably just going to Goblin Chain Whirl them and kill their tokens. So not really a card I expect to see any play. Next up, we have another of the truly powerful, perhaps the most truly powerful of the Dragon Synergy cards in the set, which is Sarkhan Fireblood. This is, the newest incarnation of the Sarkhan Planeswalker, who I happen to have great affinity with. Can't imagine why. This is a 3-cost Planeswalker, which inherently is very powerful. 3-cost Planeswalkers historically have tended to be very good, simply because having something that requires an answer or else it generates immediate and repeated value in a game is very difficult for a lot of decks to deal with. When it comes down early enough, they don't really have a board developed. If you can kill one creature, then play your Planeswalker, you can often get ahead with it. And this is a powerful card to get ahead with. The first +1 ability to discard a card and draw a card, I think is a very interesting one, because obviously it's not directly giving you card advantage, but it helps you play a deck that uses cards that may be more situational. You can potentially play, of course, Spit Flame, which we'll get to, is actually a card that I revealed on my Twitter with my preview card, which allows you to bring it back from your graveyard by paying 1 whenever you play a dragon. So if you Sarkhan, plus discard a Spit Flame, draw another card, and then end up getting that Spit Flame back, it's basically having pieced together, just +1 draw card, and that is, of course, quite powerful. The second +1 ability, to add 2 mana to spend only to cast dragon spells, this is clearly very strong, ramping up to play any of the big dragons that do exist, helping fix your mana to play various dragons. There's a lot of multicolored dragons in the Elder Dragons in the set, and that ends up being really effective to give you the ability to ramp up and play removal in the same turn. So, of course, the ultimate -7 create 4 5/5 dragons with flying. Not really the reason we play this card, but does allow it to potentially win the game uncontested. It is a ultimate that doesn't just win the game because it can be removed by a Wrath effect, so it's a little less powerful than some of the other ultimates that are on Planeswalkers out there, but this is only a 3-cost Planeswalker, so it doesn't really necessarily have to have a superstar of an ultimate, because you're just looking to get that incremental value from the other plus abilities very early and often in each game. Lastly, as I just mentioned, is Spit Flame. This was my preview card from the set. It is a 3-cost instant that deals 4 damage to any creature, so inherently not that efficient of a removal spell. It's pretty good. It kills a lot of key creatures in the format. It kills Glorybringer. It's an instant, so you can use it at any time. Hey, that's what an instant does. But it is fairly versatile in terms of removal for a lot of things in the format, and also it has the ability to return to your hand whenever you play dragon. So obviously, in a long game, being able to recur Spit Flame against another creature deck can be very powerful. Obviously, it doesn't really work terribly well against, say, Hazaret. You're not going to be getting through gods with this, so you're going to have to fly over Hazaret and whatnot. But this, along with Sarkhan, can be a powerful card advantage tool in a long game, especially and by itself is a reasonable enough removal spell that you're not just using it for that incremental value. You're able to spit flame on some minions, creatures, whatever game it is, and then eventually recur it, get back, kill your opponent with your dragons. So I think it's a pretty powerful card. It's not like an outrageously strong card, but I think that it's definitely something that will find a home in dragon theme decks, at least one or two of. All right, well those are our dragon synergy cards in the set, but here is the main course, the dragons themselves, and these are my brethren, my people, rawr. But anyway, I do appreciate the fact that this is a dragon-focused set. Tarkir, of course, a favorite of mine as far as planes are concerned. And there are obviously tons of fans of the original Elder Dragons out there. So getting to see not only the return of Nikobolas, who has risen as this arch nemesis of the Gatewatch, etc., for many sets, but also seeing the other Elder Dragons return, I think is super cool. So let's start with one of them. It is Arcades Sabbath, who is a 4-cost, 1 green, 1 blue, 1 white, 1 other. For a flying vigilance, whenever a creature with Defender enters the battlefield under control, draw a card. It's a 3/5 as well. Each creature you control with Defender assigns combat damage equal to its toughness rather than its power and can attack as though it didn't have Defender. This to me feels like it is in fact a card that is almost explicitly designed for EDH, for Elder Dragon Highlander, the original name of the Commander format. Because there's not really that many defenders in Standard, not really that many ways to build like a wall deck. But of course, in sort of the history of Magic, that's the sort of thing that people love. People love taking weird things like defensive Wall of Blossoms, Wall of whatever, Wall of this, Wall of that, and trying to turn them around and actually make them into an aggressive strategy. And this being a commander, you can build a deck full of walls. And hooray, it works every single time. Super strong in that kind of strategy. There really aren't enough walls in Standard right now to do anything with that. Maybe, as we have more sets come out, if there are, Wall of Blossoms type cards, this could be something that ends up finding a real competitive home in that format. But for now, I say that Arcades, the strategist, is going to stay in EDH. Next up, we have Bone Dragon, a 5-cost, 5/4 flyer with 3 black. Exile 7 other cards from your graveyard, return it from your graveyard to your battlefield tapped. It's a really hard dragon to kill. I would think that this would be a more powerful card if it weren't for the prominence of Vraska's Contempt and the Scarab God in control decks. Having a threat that you can recur, that doesn't even necessarily take a ton of resources. Obviously 7 is a lot of cards. If you're playing a deck that can put cards in the graveyard easily, maybe you're looting with Sarkhan, maybe you're playing a more graveyard-focused strategy, this could be powerful, but given how common exile effects are because of Vraska's Contempt being used against Hazaret and, obviously just being generically good against Planeswalkers and everything too, I find it more difficult to find a real home for Bone Dragon because in itself, just like playing it straight up, it's not that good. 5/4 flyer for 5 that doesn't do anything immediately, doesn't feel like it's giving you enough impact to really justify going in this long-term plan when a lot of people are already going to be able to deal with your long-term plan pretty easily. So maybe some sort of graveyard deck down the line if these exile effects and Scarab God, either rotate or aren't as popular. But for now, I think Bone Dragon's going to stay in the graveyard. Next up, we have Chromium the Mutable. This is a serious control killer. It's a 7-cost 7/7 flash, can't be countered with flying, that you can discard a card to, until end of turn, becomes a human with base power and toughness 1/1, loses abilities and gains hexproof. So this can obviously be fairly powerful against targeted removal, but it's not very good against wrath effects. It's not very good against Settle the Wreckage. Basically anything that is not targeted, this is a totally medium effect against. It is still a flash 7/7 that can't be countered, and that can't be, interacted with effectively by your opponent's removal, barring Settle the Wreckage, until, their main phase, or, some sort of instant wrath, I guess, Settle the Wreckage. But, yeah, I think this is a card that may end up seeing a play as sort of a sideboard card for those controlling matchups where, you're looking for a way to kill your opponent's Teferi or, deal with other sort of stuff like that. Even just being able to become unblockable 1/1 could matter. Your opponent's trying to kill it with whatever. So I think this is an interesting card, and definitely will see a home kind of as a an Aetherling style effect in Control Mirrors. Obviously not nearly as powerful as Aetherling because it can't dodge actual Wrath effects or Settle, but overall definitely a difficult card for Control to deal with. And if you're playing a dragon deck that can play like most of these colors, and maybe you have Dragon's Horde and you can try and splash this, as a sort of sideboard card, I don't know if that's actually going to be worth it, but it's something worth thinking about because, against targeted removal, this card is kind of the nuts. Next up, we have Demanding Dragon, which is a 5-cost 5/5 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, it deals 5 damage to your opponent unless they sacrifice a creature. First of all, I love the thematic of this. The fact that it's like a dragon that comes down, demands tribute, or breathes fire all over you. Cool, just story going on here. And this is also like a dragon that I think works in sort of aggressive dragon decks, which most of the dragons we've actually seen are more kind of like mid-range and controlling type dragons so far, right? Even like Glorybringer. Yes, Glorybringer has haste, it smashes people right away, but it's also like kind of a controlling style thing with its exert ability. This is like straight up aggressive, and I think that this is a card that it would be more powerful in a world where like you could still do this damage to a Planeswalker. Like if your opponent didn't have a creature and you could Demanding Dragon and redirect the damage to a Planeswalker, this card would be great because it'd be, oh well, either I'm killing you or your Planeswalker. But with that sort of rules change, I'm less impressed by this ability in a lot of spots. I'd rather have a Glorybringer even as an aggressive deck. But this, helps you sort of punish controlling decks, just get, some extra damage in, and can be, I think pretty powerful as like a finisher that not only can get that damage in, but also forces them to deal with it itself. So, cool card. I tend to like more of the mid-range controlling style of decks, so this is less of the card that I'm probably going to be playing with myself, but we'll see. We'll see. I've never seen a dragon I didn't like enough not to at least consider playing it. Next up, we have Lathliss Dragon Queen. Lathliss is a super cool card. The queen of the dragons who hatches more dragons when dragons show up. You play another dragon, it mates with Lathliss, you get an additional dragon. Cool story, and I think it's a cool card. I think it's a difficult card to ever really make work in Constructed. It's been a long time since paying 6 mana for a 6/6 flyer that didn't do anything immediately when you played it was good enough. This card would have been potentially great back in the day of like Rith, like the original Invasion Dragons when, hey, 6 for a 6/6 flyer, that's powerful. It has an additional ability of fire breathing your dragons, and if you do have more dragons, great, you get a bonus, but by itself, I'm not really seeing it, paying your 6 mana, untapping, paying another dragon, you get additional dragons, sure, that's great, but now you're walking into more Wrath effects, you have to have survived to this point, and she had to have survived to this point, and it's like, it just isn't enough, I feel like. Maybe in like a light removal matchup where you can expect this will live, like you're playing against, I don't know, a green deck. But even green decks have, Miriam Reed or whatever. Jojen Reed? I don't know, one of the Reeds. Not the ones from Game of Thrones, the other one. Vivian Reed. No, I actually literally don't remember what her name is. Which one is from Game of Thrones and which one is the actual Planeswalker card. So someone sort that out for me. But anyway, I think it's just too difficult for you to play this and then untap and play another dragon to get value out of her. So it's a cool dream to try to live, but it seems like a difficult dream to live, and I don't really see it happening often enough. Next up, we have Nikobolas the Ravager, who has every single ability on the back of him. Nikobolas is obviously one of the sort of hallmark creatures, hallmark characters of Magic in general. And it's not surprising to see this be like perhaps the hallmark card of the set with 4/4 flyer for 4, which is fine stats, not amazing stats. We've seen this before and had it not be good, but with the ability that your opponent discards a card when you play it, that's powerful to begin with. Getting incremental advantage every time you play a Nikobolas, and then having the ability to transform for 7 mana into Nikobolas the Ascendant. I'm actually not even looking at the card right now. I think that's what it is. With just a bunch of abilities that, you can draw 2 cards, you can deal 10 damage to something, you can reanimate something, you can just basically win the game. This is a very powerful card, and this is a card that, you have to want the front side of in order to justify playing it for the back side, because if your deck can't really take advantage of a 4/4 flyer for 4 with a discard effect, which frankly, some decks aren't really that well suited to do, you're not really going to be looking to play the Planeswalker version. I think that it's more like this is a card that happens to be a long game power effect if your deck gets to that point. And maybe you're the idea is that you play like a mid-range control-y like Grixis Dragon deck, and this is kind of like your end game if you don't get the job done with like this and Glorybringer and whatever else. So I think that Nikobolas is very powerful. I don't know that it's going to have the impact that the backside, the Planeswalker, would have you believe. I think in most games you're going to just see this as a disruptive 4/4 flyer because not only do you have to spend 7 mana to actually transform him, but your opponent can kill it in response. So you have to be pretty sure that Nikobolas transform is going to work out, or else you're spending 7 mana and getting nothing, and that's pretty huge because you can only do it when you can cast a sorcery, so you can't like try and end step it, or your opponent's tapped out and you're trying to like do it before your turn. No, it doesn't work. You got to actually use all that 7 mana during your main phase, and that's a big ask to something that gets totally disrupted by just a removal spell. All right, next up we have Palladium Moors the Ruiner. This is the new Rith, at least Rith casting cost and Rith stats, 6/6 flying, but she gets Vigilance and Trample. Rith only had the Sapling ability, I don't know. Power Creep, it's good though, creature should be better. But she has a particularly awesome ability with Hexproof if she hasn't dealt damage yet. And that's a pretty powerful ability, both offensively and defensively. So this is just a very powerful tool because your opponent can't kill it unless it's either hit them or killed one of their creatures first. And this is a very good defensive tool in particular, I think, because your opponent is going to be hard pressed to attack into a 6/6 and not have their creatures get eaten by it. Your opponent can attack a Glorybringer into this. It's like, okay, well, they can't target it because it has Hexproof and is a dragon, double whammy. And then, okay, well, you can like block, eat their guy, and then they have to burn it with an extra removal spell. And you're almost always going to get value from Palladium Moors, either getting multiple cards from your opponent trying to kill it, or getting damage in and then your opponent spending a removal spell. I don't know that it's nearly good enough to just kind of sit and have it win the game on its own. Yes, it has Vigilance, so you can attack your opponent and keep it up on defense as well, which is pretty powerful against other aggressive decks. But it's still vulnerable to Vraska's Contempt. It can still be double burned down. That said, if your opponent's using a bunch of resources trying to kill her, that doesn't leave them with much to kill you. And being immune to Glorybringer is a really big deal in an environment where that card is very popular. Next up, we have Spark-Tongue Dragon, which is basically Flame-Tongue Kavu of a dragon. It's really expensive for Flame-Tongue, though. It's a 5-cost 3/3 flyer, which is fine, for limited at least. And when it enters the battlefield, you may pay red and 2. When you do, it deals 3 to any target. So it's a powerful draft card, powerful sealed deck card. It's a 3/3 flyer for 5, which is okay. Decent body to begin with the ability to double as a removal effect late in the game. Certainly powerful, certainly never gonna take it out of a deck, I imagine, and probably gonna draft it quite a bit. Certainly also not gonna play it in Constructed. It does not hold a candle to the Elder Dragons like this one, our final bad boy, our final Elder Dragon, Vivictus Asmadi the Dire. This is the Daragaz cost, 3 black, red, green with flying. Whenever it attacks for each player, choose target permanent that player controls. Those players sacrifice those permanents. Each player who sacrifices a permanent this way reveals the top card of the library, then puts it on the battlefield if it's a permanent card. So this is a very powerful card. When you first look at it, it's like, oh, okay, it's like kind of a weird, like Warp Worldish type effect. No, you get to choose. So this is a 6/6 flyer that when it attacks, you get to choose something from them for them to sacrifice, and then you get to like pick a land of yours you don't need anymore and hope to turn that into another dragon. Because you get to choose theirs, you get to choose yours. So their best thing, your worst thing, you both sort of, go cascading. I guess it's not cascading because you only flip one. But you're, turning that into hopefully something bad and turning yours into hopefully something good. Yes, there are theoretically scenarios where you hit something great for them and you get screwed, but the likelihood of that is very low compared to, like, whenever this attacks, their thing is dead. So they can't, like, hold back a big thing to block it. They can't, have, like, a Planeswalker that, it's like, sorry, you have a Planeswalker. I don't have to attack your Planeswalker. I just make you sacrifice it. If they have, like, cast outs on your other creatures, sorry, you have to exile your cast out. I get my other creature back. This ability is very powerful, and I think this is one of, if not the most powerful of the Elder Dragons in the set, simply because that ability by itself can win games if your opponent doesn't kill it immediately. Granted, this is a 6/6 that if your opponent kills it, you don't get anything. And I mentioned that that's difficult to justify, but you don't have to combo anything with this. This is just okay. I attack you. I don't have to set something else up, and potentially run the risk of getting that screwed up. This is just okay. Well, I get to attack my 6/6. It does even more than hit you for 6 damage. It ruins your life. Anyway, thank you all very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the dragons and dragon synergy cards of M19. I know I had some fun doing it in costume. Wait, no, this isn't a costume. This is just me. Forget I said anything. But no, I'm really looking forward to playing with some of these sweet dragons. I will be playing standard for my team at the upcoming Pro Tour, and I can assure you that I have started brewing some decks that have quite a few of the cards I've talked about today. Haven't played a game yet, but we're going to get to that point. So anyway, thank you all very much for watching, and thanks again if you did choose to click down the bottom on that fundraiser for the ACLU and looking to match your donations with my Silver Showcase winnings. So thanks a lot. See you next time.